We begin with a Fox News alert. I'm Harris Faulkner. A Malaysian passenger jetliner with 295 people on board has crashed in Ukraine near the Russian border. We continue our coverage of this now on Fox News Channel. That is according to the news agency Interfax, citing an aviation industry source. It says the Boeing plane was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. And of course, this brings up all sorts of memories of an earlier missing plane with the same airline back in March. But now we focus on Flight 17, which has crashed. There are a lot of things that are being said about what could have brought that plane down. Right now, I want to let you know that Malaysian Airlines has made a statement. They say that they are completely aware of what's going on. They are not yet ready to come out and say exactly what's happened on this crash. We are aware of the media reports and we are gathering information at this point, is what they say. Meanwhile, the Interior Minister of Ukraine is saying that they believe that this plane was brought down, shot down by some sort of a missile. Two things to know about where this plane was. One, obviously near the Russian border. What's problematic, though, about where it was located is that that's a hot zone during the war that's going on right now, or the conflict between those two countries. So it's difficult to know if that played a role at this point, but of course, that's what people are looking for. It was flying at 34,000 feet. And if you want to think about it this way, a surface-to-air missile probably wouldn't be able to take out a plane that far away. So what might it have been? That's what they're looking at. We've got a panel sitting by here, as we always do on Outnumbered. We're going to go around the horn. Let's start with Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo?
I think the fact that it is a Malaysian airliner, specifically the liner that is the same as the infamously missing passenger jet in the Indian Ocean, is a distraction. I would say, as a war correspondent and weighing all of the facts as they've been coming in, admittedly, this is my opinion. I believe that Vladimir Putin has the blood of these airline passengers on his hands. The Russian leader has been supplying increasingly sophisticated weaponry to the pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine activists in eastern Ukraine. There are reports that sophisticated surface-to-air missiles have been spotted in that region. There is very little command and control from Russia's point of view over those rebels in eastern Ukraine. I believe, as I sit here today, that what happened is Russia supplied that weapon system so that those rebels could shoot down Ukrainian helicopters and Ukrainian warplanes attacking them, and they saw this aircraft in the sky. These undisciplined pro-Russian Ukrainian rebels shot down that innocent passenger jet, I believe. All right, and you said that several times. I mean, you're attributing this to your own experience in a war zone, and we appreciate that. But at the same time, you cannot change the fact that supplying those sophisticated surface-to-air missiles is something that has been widely reported, as you're saying. So it is a possibility. The other thing has to do with what the Russians will say about this incident. And we don't know yet because they haven't really talked about it. Let's get to the White House and maybe a potential response from there as we've been watching this. Kirsten Powers is on the couch.
Well,
Kirsten?
the BBC actually just reported that the Russians are denying that they had anything to do with it. So I think we don't really know anything at this point. I mean, it's interesting that you feel so strongly about this. What's their motivation in that? You think it was just incompetence, or do you think it was malicious, that it was meant to take down a passenger jet, or do you think they're just incompetent and they have access to weapons?
We don't know what's happened.
Speculation.
We don't know what's happened.
If you're asking my opinion, every report you've seen, who are these leaders of the Ukraine separatist group? They are hardcore intelligence guys, war-hardened radicals in many ways. They will stop at nothing. I think that, to answer your question, though, I do not believe that they consciously sought to take out a commercial airliner. I don't think they're that stupid, nor that malicious. I think that this was sheer incompetence. When you give a kid a gun and the kid kills somebody, the kid may not intend to kill somebody, but they don't know enough. These separatists, I think, saw that. They understand how to target the missile. They took down the aircraft because that was the aircraft flying over them. And I think that you have here a combination of incompetence, horrible tragedy, and a war crime.
And again, that is your opinion because nothing has been confirmed yet. Let's go over again where this plane was, though. Why would the pilot have been so close to a hot zone? I mean, that's worth answering. We don't know that question, the answer to that question yet. But at 34,000 feet, obviously flying from one destination to the other, all you have to do is watch one news report and you know that there's something going on in that part of the world. So that landscape over that hot zone, what took that pilot there? Kimberly?
Yeah, I don't think there's any coincidence with any of this that's going on right now, and I think we're going to find out relatively quickly exactly what happened and what went down, because we have the benefit of the crash scene. They'll be able to bring in forensic experts to be able to do an examination of the aircraft to determine, in fact, if it was struck, where it was struck, what kind of weapon was used. They'll also be able to understand the trajectory of the weapon that was fired, where it came from and it originated. So they're going to be able to get some real-time information on the ground very quickly. As for Russia, there's no way that Russia is going to claim that they shot down a passenger plane. Ever. Right. Even if they had some kind of involvement in it by providing the weapons systems or anything like that, they're not going to claim this. It is too problematic for them internationally to do so.
All right. And you know what? Before we go to Wendell, I do want to say this. There was a tweet that was put out very early on. Do we have that to pop up on the screen? I don't know if we do or not.
I've got the tweet in front of me.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, Sandra.
Well, I mean, this is important. This is what we know, because, again, we're going off of reports from Interfax, which is a Russian non-government news agency. But this is what we do know. This is Malaysian Airlines tweeting this out, that they have lost contact with MH17 from Amsterdam. The last known position was over Ukrainian airspace. More details to follow. I've got the Twitter feed in front of me constantly. I'll be watching it. Something else that has also been confirmed is the London Bureau, our London Bureau, is reporting that Amsterdam Airport is still not confirming anything on their side as well. So we're going
Except that the plane took off from there.
Except for the fact that the plane took off from there.
All right. A couple new things. And you'll see us intermittently put up this Sky News video of that smoke, and there it is again. We want to just say this and get on the record with this now. This is what witnesses are telling us that is on the ground there. We're not getting, what we like to do is triangulate confirmation of that from the airline, from Amsterdam, from the people who we have as sources inside that border area of Ukraine as well. So until we can really confirm that with 3 different sources, let's just go on the fact that that's possibly where the plane went down. We do know that other planes have gone down in this region. Just on Monday, a cargo plane was reportedly shot down in that same region. I mean, it's a war zone. Now, I had originally asked Kirsten this question about the White House. We're still trying to get some information, and let's go to Wendell Goler, who's live outside the White House. I'm curious, because this is kind of an interesting place where the president might step in. How do you get in? There's a war going on. You've got Putin on one side. What are your sources telling you, Wendell?
Well, we're still waiting for comment from the White House and from the State Department. The State Department folks have indicated they will comment during their briefing this afternoon. The president, of course, on his way to Delaware for an event on infrastructure. These reports came in just as Marine One was taking off from the South Lawn. This, of course, comes a day after the president stepped up sanctions on Russia. He said they hadn't stopped supporting the pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. In fact, officials said on background they had increased their support for pro-Russian separatists. And on the transport plane shot down on Monday that you mentioned, senior administration officials said that plane was shot down, an AN-26 transport jet, from an altitude of 21,000 feet, which this official said indicated that the separatists had very sophisticated weapons and would be able to reach that far. This Malaysian passenger jet apparently traveling at about 33,000 feet. So it would take sophisticated weapons to shoot it down, and it's our understanding that the pro-Russian separatists have them. But once again, we're awaiting comment from both the White House and the State Department on this latest incident. Harris?
All right, Wendell, thank you. We'll check back. Of course we will, and you stick with us this hour, too, so we can toggle back and forth with you. We appreciate it. I want to quickly go to Geraldo for just a second, because he mentioned 21,000 feet. I mentioned 34,000 feet. These are not your normal surface-to-air type of apparatus. These are sophisticated. Talk to me about the weaponry, potentially.
These weapons have the capacity. They either are locking on with radar or with heat-seeking. They have the capacity to go well beyond the range that this aircraft was flying at. That is an easy bag. Plus, they're cumbersome. They're large. They're relatively slow. They're not like a war plane. They're not at all stealth technology. They show up like a sore thumb. So here, in my view, the most likely scenario, and I want to be measured about this because I feel very strongly when all of my red flags go up, when they all line up, it's for a reason. You start with the fact that you saw eyewitness suggest that the sophisticated surface-to-air missile systems have gone across the border from Russia into the hands of the Ukraine separatists. So that's A. B, you have the shoot down of the commercial aircraft earlier in the week at 21,000 feet, well beyond the capacity of a shoulder-fired missile, as you suggest. Then you have a lumbering passenger plane flying at 34,000 feet. I submit that this system, this Russian system, which, remember, they took down the U-2 spy planes at 60,000 plus feet, well within the capacity of this weapon system. And then the fourth thing, the ill-disciplined, reckless militancy of the Ukraine separatists being pushed by and encouraged by Vladimir Putin. I think when you make this toxic mix, that's, in my view, the most likely scenario that happened to this outrageous tragedy.
All right, with more on this coverage, Kimberly.
All right, and Jennifer Griffin, our national security correspondent, joins us from our Washington bureau with the very latest. Jennifer?
Hi, Kimberly. Well, what we know at this point is that the M17, the Malaysian airline flight, was flying at 33,000 feet. We've had reports in recent days from reporters on the ground in eastern Ukraine that a sophisticated Buk missile system, this is a Russian medium-range surface-to-air missile system that can shoot at planes and missiles flying up to 72,000 feet. So this Malaysian plane was flying well within the range of the Buk missile system. We have some video right now, file video of the Buk missile system and how it works. It's known by NATO as an SA-11 or SA-17. It's something that's it was produced in the Soviet Union and in Russia. And again, AP reporters who were on the ground near Donetsk said that in the last 24 hours they had seen this Buk missile system that had been brought across the border from Russia. Pentagon officials told us in the last 24 hours that they had seen an increase of Russian troops along that border. They were estimating between 10 to 12,000 troops were now along the Ukraine border. Remember, just in mid-June, President Putin had pulled his forces back from that border. They were at a height of 40,000 troops along that border. They packed up suddenly about a month ago, and now they appear to be back and building up again. In the last few days, we've seen sophisticated Russian rocket systems coming across the border, including the Grad missile system. That's a surface-to-surface missile system. It can fire 40 rockets at the same time. Ukrainian troops say that they've been under fire from that Grad missile system. So what we're seeing is a real escalation in recent days of missile systems coming from Russia, as well as a buildup of Russian troops. And as Geraldo was mentioning, in the last week alone, we've seen 2 Ukrainian planes shot down. According to Interior Ministry officials in Ukraine, the fighter jet, the Su-25 that was shot down last night, was brought down by a Russian missile. And then on Monday, as Wendell was discussing, there was the Ukrainian cargo jet. That jet was flying at 21,000 feet, and it was also brought down by a surface-to-air missile. So not easy to bring down these kind of planes with shoulder-fired missiles. It is very notable that this Buk missile system has now been introduced into this separatist conflict inside Ukraine, and clearly the separatists there are getting more and more Russian help.
Wow.
Now, Jennifer, so obviously an increase in the amount of activity and violence in that area. What about any intel chatter that you've been hearing through the circuits on the ground from the people there? Was there any kind of statements that were being put out by these fighters to say that they would take down any aircraft that crossed into that area?
We have not been, we have not heard of any particular threats, and I would say at this point in time, there's no indication that whatever brought down this plane, that whoever fired those missiles, if it was a missile that brought it down, that it was intentional. It could have been an accident. But what is notable is that there has been a clear targeting of Ukrainian military jets, whether it's a cargo jet or a fighter plane, in recent days. And so the coincidence of a commercial aircraft coming down in exactly the same area where these other planes were shot down is just, that's what's leading to a lot lot of this discussion right now, but it is the Ukrainian Interior Ministry spokesman who did mention the Buk anti-aircraft missile system, and they are quite certain, according to the Ukrainian officials, that it was this missile that brought down that plane. So again, we're having to piece together reports from the ground, but certainly the circumstantial evidence at this point in time suggests there's been an introduction in recent days of very sophisticated surface-to-air missiles capable of firing up to 72,000 feet.